Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm David Eli from Bridge Insurance. I'm also the Vice President for the Southwest Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to be here again today with you. Manny will be back after the first of the year, we hope. For now, you're stuck with me. That's fortunate for me, maybe unfortunate for you. I am joined in studio today by my new guest, Jason Esch, is it?
That's correct.
All right, this gentleman here is the president and owner of a company that is called Team Logic IT. And we're excited to have you as part of the chamber. Welcome.
Thank you. Excited to be here. Excited to be here.
We're going to spend some time today talking about his company, about his background, about what they do and where they're going. Why don't we just dive right into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So what got you into the IT world? We were just talking a little bit about, going back to college and what we thought we'd be doing, and here you are now running your own company. Tell us about that. How did that happen?
Definitely didn't think I'd be where I'm at today, in that regard, right? My background actually was in operations management. So I spent a lot of time, in college studying how I wanted to impact operations in a business. And I really fell into IT, ironically. My first position out of college, I got an opportunity to work with a pretty large company that was spinning off a business. And they had me work, on how do you ultimately take systems and processes and automate them. And I really kind of liked that work. And then flash forward, I guess, into where we're at today. That particular division was sold and purchased by a company called FedEx. I'm sure you heard of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of time with FedEx doing applied technology solutions, grew up through the ranks, loved the technology space. Quite frankly, I loved the element of helping others, right, through technology.
Okay.
And that's ultimately what led me to this position now, where I have an opportunity to help multiple small and medium-sized businesses accomplish their business goals through technology, and I love it. I love it.
What would you say that's an interesting story with FedEx? Because you went from this giant international conglomerate to running your own thing. So how did that, what challenges did you face there?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge, right? You come from a really large company,
right,
an enterprise company. But I learned a lot there, right? I learned how to scale technology in a way that was conducive to a business, right? We supported multiple different business segments in my role there. And there was a new challenge every day, and I loved it, right? So, but it also became a little bit complacent over the time, right? There was only so much influence I could have in a company that large. So I really wanted to seek out something a little bit more for myself, for my family. And that ended up starting my own company. And, I learned so much at FedEx that it gave me the opportunity to take that knowledge and apply it and really give back to the community in ways that I didn't think I'd be able to do. But it's been a great decision. Those particular areas that I learned about at FedEx, kind of really were the leapfrog of how I could start my own company and really, bring that success that I had as an individual at a large corporation and kind of dumb it down into, helping out smaller companies, right?
That's, this is something that you probably have heard a lot, and I fall into this category.
Yeah.
You probably hear, I'm not a computer guy, right? I'm sure you hear that.
Yeah.
The world that you work in can be very intimidating for people that aren't part of it.
Yeah.
So could we go into a little bit about, what is your company doing to ease that for people that are a little intimidated by that IT space?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, technology, David, can be really intimidating and it's complicated, right? And, I think the opportunity in front of us collectively and my company was just that challenge, right? Not everybody understands it. Right. How can we help bridge that gap for people, specifically small business owners who frankly want to be in their business and strategically thinking about how they want to move their business forward. And they don't necessarily want to be in the nuts and bolts of technology. Right. So companies like ours, Team Logic IT specifically, we've been around for 20 years in the managed service provider space. That allows us to have a huge backbone and a huge network of resources at our disposal to really help small and medium-sized businesses on their technology journey, which is super important. But also because we're local here in the Pittsburgh market, we have the opportunity to add that personal touch, and that's frankly what I love. Getting a chance to understand our business partners and what they do and how they want to bring their businesses to life. I actually get a lot of joy out of that piece of it. I'm a technologist second and a business person first. Okay. But if we look at what we provide to our clients, managed technology services, think of us as your extended technology department for companies that necessarily can't afford to dedicate staff to technology, right?
Okay.
And we work strategically with our clients to understand, hey, what do you want to get out of technology to further enable your business, right? I'm not a big believer in technology for technology's sake.
Okay, I like that. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Was there a moment in your company, obviously you've been very successful with this, that you saw a light that went on, a turning point, and you thought, hey, this is working.
Yeah.
What do we do next?
I think it's, obviously it continues to mature, and, our, business is continuing to grow. But I think that lightning bolt for me was when we signed our first fairly large client. And, 25, what we call in the industry endpoints, right, is the total number of computers that we're supporting. And, this is a fairly large client for us starting out. And, when we signed that client, it was like, oh man, we could actually really do this, and it's going to work. And sitting down with that client and mapping out, where they wanted to take their business, and then how we can come in and help use technology to amplify that. That was the sweet spot for me, right? Okay. Because I'm, as we get into the conversation later, you'll find that I'm fairly empathetic. I put myself in the shoes of our business partners to figure out how can we, best achieve success for them, using technology as kind of that lightning rod, right, to enable what they want to do business-wise. So, when we signed that client and then we helped see them grow, just in a short amount of time, and then continuing to see that investment pay off, not only for them but for us. That was the moment where I think, hey, this is actually going to work, and we can create the multiplier effect.
Very nice. What you mentioned clients a few times.
Yeah.
Who's your ideal client? Who are we looking for?
So
how are you marketing and positioning yourself?
I mean, we're fairly industry agnostic, David. I mean, ironically enough, we have a lot of clients right now in the financial services industry. That seems to be kind of a sweet spot for us right now. And if you think about technology and a lot of the compliance that goes along with technology, it makes sense, right? Because financial services firms have, cybersecurity needs. Right. They're regulated. And we have to, obviously, go in there and look at their data in a different way, and how do you, maintain that compliance. So, but we do have a wide variety of clients that we work with today. Sweet spot for us is manufacturing segment, healthcare, financial services, professional services like legal firms. Okay. That's kind of what makes up our client base today, are those 4 or 5 core areas. But we basically support virtually every industry type.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
What about trends? I told you earlier, I'm not a computer guy, right? And I'm sure you get sick of hearing that. But I see things on television, I see things on the internet. There are a lot of trends. What trends do you see in your space right now? Where are we going?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? And trends they're cyclical, right? And in the technology space, I tend to use a framework called the Gartner Hype Cycle, if you've ever heard of it. It helps you kind of stay grounded in what those trends will be. There's a triggering event typically that causes a trend to come to light. But then there's this peak, right, of inflated expectations that goes along with it. And the hype of that particular trend is never as strong as it is in that moment. And then everybody comes back down to earth, right? We call that kind of like this trough of disillusionment, right? Where you actually, if you tie it with an example, let's say cloud computing as an example, right? In the early 2000s, that was a pretty big concept, right? Yeah. Expectations were high. Everything's going to the cloud, right?
Yeah.
And then the cost model and the costs associated with that and the architecture that you need to actually implement it scared a lot of people away, right? Okay. So then people started going away from it. And then ultimately, there's this slope of enlightenment where ultimately people figure it out, they stay with it over time, and then it becomes mainstreamed into kind of we call it a productivity plateau, right? Mm-hmm. And cloud computing was one of those great examples of how that happened. It's everyday use. If you talk to any business today, they're using some element of cloud in their business today, whether that be software as a service, maybe their CRM system, their customer resource management system. But in terms of the trends that we're seeing now, I would say, obviously the biggest one out there is AI, right? And that's gone through that same hype cycle where you're actually now at a slope of enlightenment with that, because a lot of failures have occurred early on. The models have become a lot more sophisticated. I was at a seminar a couple weeks ago, and they said, 2 years ago with AI, you ultimately were looking at kindergarten level of maturity, right? Okay. Or understanding. Yeah. And now AI is at a master's level degree of understanding. So that particular hype cycle is a real thing, and we're definitely keeping our eyes on artificial intelligence and where we're heading with that particular movement. At Team Logic IT, we're embracing it, right? And we actually created a service offering around it called Managed Intelligence Services. So it's a pretty unique offering for us. We come into an organization, we assess their AI readiness, frankly, and then give them recommendations and a roadmap on how to implement that in a way that's practical for them and gives them the productivity they need.
Okay. Could you expand a little bit? You said AI readiness.
Yeah.
What is AI readiness?
So typically when you go into a small and medium-sized client, people have an understanding of what AI is, right?
ChatGPT,
right? Copilot.
Right, yeah.
You play around, you ask it questions. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's important for us to assess, how ready the organization is to embrace artificial intelligence. Okay. We call it managed intelligence. And we do that in a way that's structured, right? Because readiness means that you need to be able to scale it in a way that's safe and secure. And the tools out of the box, specifically if you're using a free version of ChatGPT or Copilot, you're opening yourself up for some security exploits, number one, and number two, your data is no longer private, right? So, what we typically do when we come in for a readiness assessment is we kind of understand what's your current state with your AI journey. Do you have use cases that you want to implement? And then we help bridge that gap through a comprehensive readiness assessment that goes from point A to point B in a safe and secure way.
Okay. That's interesting. You obviously can't do all this by yourself.
No.
So do you have a team? Tell us about your staff, your team.
Yeah, love it. And when it comes to leadership, that's obviously something that I'm passionate about. I had a fairly large team when I worked, in the enterprise and the corporate world. Starting your own business is a little bit more challenging, right? You start, a little bit smaller and you grow. But I do have a team of technologists and systems engineers that work with me on a regular basis. I would say when I'm looking for a team member to join our organization, we really follow closely to our our mission and vision, right? And there are 5 things that I think that are very important and are in our overall core values as a company. Integrity, accountability. We need to be innovative. I mentioned the word empathy before. Being empathetic is super core to who we are and what we do. And then the last thing is just being customer obsessed. So when I build a team, I'm looking for those 5 core attributes. How does a technologist fit into that? Because sometimes technology personnel can be, they're not necessarily as open. They could be a little bit more passive. And we want to make sure that we have that customer-facing experience for our clients. I'm also looking to hire people that are not the same as me, right? Diversity in thought is super important. So when we build a team, it's just that. It's, I don't want to hire, 5 or 6 people like myself. I want different viewpoints, right? And I want that team to be well-rounded and aligned to our core values as a company. So Team Logic IT, the awesomeness about it is that we have over 1,700 engineers across the country.
That's incredible.
Right?
Wow.
And we have 320 locations.
Okay.
And I'm one of the locations here in the greater Pittsburgh area. There's another office that opened in the north side
Okay.
recently. But we have 5 engineers that work in our organization.
Okay.
And they make up that conglomerate that I just talked about.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was as big as it is.
Yeah, very large.
Okay. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you encounter when you walk into a client, a potential client, into a meeting, having your general intro, intake and conversation? Excuse me. What are the biggest mistakes people are making that you see most often? And how do you feel?
David, I think ironically, it's still some of the basic blocking and tackling. I mean,
Okay.
password management, I think, is the biggest one that I see,
Really?
frankly. I think there was a stat out there that 90% of the exploits that are happening today could be prevented through proper password management and security awareness training, right? Those two components together are actually pretty profound, right? So when we look at what clients are doing, a lot of the mistakes and the pitfalls that you're making from a technology perspective could be fixed with just some better password management and training for your team. You've probably heard of security awareness training and a lot of the phishing campaigns that go on with would-be attackers where they're trying to get you to click on a specific email link, and that introduces malware into your system. There are things that we do to prevent that from happening, but if it does get to an end user, just having that training in place really protects your company. So we typically work with clients to get that training in place regardless of their size, just because it's important. You're in the insurance space, so I'm sure if you've heard of people trying to secure cyber insurance, like that's a huge thing for companies, and you can't get that insurance unless you're security sound.
Right.
And then the password management piece, the typical pitfalls that we see is everybody's using the same password for everything. They're written down, they're on Post-it notes.
Guilty.
So, just doing a simple audit of the customer site and making some practical recommendations for how they can improve that posture, and it's not as complicated as people think. So we specialize in that, and we really work with our clients to make sure that they can clean that process up.
Okay. You mentioned it's not as complicated as people might think, and so let's play a what if. We're at a cocktail party, or better yet, we're at a Chamber of Commerce coffee hour, and somebody comes up. You guys are striking up a conversation. Obviously, it's an intimidating conversation. Technology scares the devil out of everybody that doesn't understand it.
Yeah.
Right? Besides the password, is there a tidbit of advice that you would share with somebody?
I typically don't lead with technology, to your point, because it is scary, right? And people are, for whatever reason, are immediately turned off by it just because it's complicated.
Nobody knows what to talk about.
They don't want to have a conversation,
right?
And so I typically, when I engage in that type of environment, I typically make it about them. Like, what are your common business problems?
Okay.
Like, is there something going on in your business that if you could fix, what would that be?
Yeah.
Right. And, I let that conversation take its course, and then I maybe jump into how certain technology solutions could potentially help. And if they want to lead with technology, it's usually about, they have a very specific question in mind.
Yes.
So I think it's important to kind of get to the why behind that question first. So I think business context is super important. And you'll hear that theme come out every time you talk to me, just because, like I said, business person first, technologist second.
Yeah.
I think you have to always ask ask the 5 whys, right?
Good.
Like, why do you want to, like, what is it you're trying to do? Why do you want to do it that way, right? And try to dig into root cause, and then ultimately from that conversation, you can, help advise, a colleague or somebody in your network of how to best use technology to their advantage.
I already feel a little more comfortable talking about BIT world with you.
Yeah.
You have a unique sense of taking the fear out of IT for people, which is, I'm sure that's contributing to your success.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a goal.
You know, as you look ahead, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for your company?
Well, and we touched on AI already. You know, I think the way we're rallying around it. You know, I recently got back and we were talking on the way down here, you know, from our owners summit in Dallas, and you know, I'm really impressed with our posture around how we're approaching AI, and we're calling it managed intelligence services or managed intelligence solutions. You know, where we can actually wrap, you know, a solution around the AI and make that relationship between your technology partner and your business a little bit more sticky.
Okay.
Right. Just because, you know, we want, and one of my goals is to make sure that we're allowing our business partners to be successful in their endeavors, and using that applied technology technique. You know, I think AI is one area that we're really laser focused in making sure we can use it to differentiate our clients' business. And it comes down to use cases, right? You know, a lot of what we're seeing right now for clients is just even call center operations.
Okay.
Right? So we're using AI solutions as part of our technology stack just to help get their call volume streamlined so they're not missing calls or missing leads or opportunities. Okay. Something as simple as that can increase their sales, you know, tenfold. The other thing I'm seeing in the industry that is a huge area of focus for us, and you know, if you ask me what keeps me up at night, it is the security posture, because it is ever changing and there are bad actors everywhere.
Sure.
You know, and I think the continued investment in partnerships in that space with TeamLogic IT, the benefit of our company is that we have really strategic alliances in that industry. Okay. You know, and we partner with some best of breed cybersecurity solutions. And that allows our clients to, you know, have those solutions in place and be able to afford them, as opposed to like typically these solutions would be more enterprise level solutions for, you know, Fortune 500 companies. And we're able to get those solutions in place for our clients because of our buying power. So those strategic alliances that we've made along the way really make me feel comfortable about, you know, what our posture is in the security space, but it continuously evolves, and it's important that you have those partnerships in place, you know, with those strategic vendors, you know, to make sure that our customers' sites and their estate essentially is safe and secure. Okay. So those two areas in particular are huge growth areas for us because it's top of mind for our clients.
You mentioned you just came back from what you call an owners
summit.
Yeah. Owners summit in Dallas. So, if I'm understanding this right, TeamLogic IT is a nationwide company.
We are. Yeah.
You have, what you said, 320
locations
throughout the country.
Throughout the country. Yeah.
You're one of two here in Pittsburgh.
That's correct.
Right. Okay. So you're bringing this nationwide capabilities with a lot of experience, a lot of clients, and you're personalizing it here for your particular market, correct?
That's correct. You know, we're nationwide, obviously, like you said, with a local presence, and you know, I think what's unique about our model is that, you know, independently owned and operated. So each one of our owners brings a very unique perspective to their business, right? I happen to have more of an operations background. You know, I went into IT. I've been in IT now for 25 years, but I've always had, like I said before, that business first mindset. So I'm always looking for to solve a problem, you know, as a business person first. Some of our other owners have been purely in the technology space, right? And I think it goes back to that power of a team that we talked about earlier. The diversity in thought you get with the TeamLogic IT. You have 320 network owners that you can tap into, 1,700 engineers that you can tap into, and there hasn't been anything that, you know, we haven't seen, right? We've seen it all. And I think bringing that breadth and depth of exposure to a client is super important. And, making sure that you're being local and present in your community, right? And we love it here. We live here. We work here. We want to make a positive influence in the community in which we live and work. And I think that's what makes our model so unique.
Well, that's what I was driving at, because I think one of the most frustrating things for me as a novice in this world is calling an 800 number.
Yep.
And having a faceless voice.
Transactional. Right?
Very transactional. And to me, really the benefit is not only having the ability to take advantage of what your company offers, but being able to call you or whoever my case person is, or whatever you call them. There's a problem, or there's an issue, or whatever, that I'm going to talk to somebody that's possibly a neighbor. Rather than somebody overseas.
And it's ironic because in this industry, right, we talk about transactions, right,
Yes.
because it's
Right.
it's technology,
Sure.
right? But at the end of the day, there's not a bigger relationship business than the technology business, because our clients are trusting us with their information, right? And,
Yes.
and their most vital information that runs their business. So if you don't have that relationship with your IT professional, that's a problem. And I think technology lately has evolved, right? I mean, I think if you look at companies and large companies that have technology departments in place, I think originally they were thought more of a cost center, right? It's just a way of doing business. It's part of the hazards of doing business. You have to have, technology people in your organization. I tend to think of us as, a value provider, right? And we are not a cost center. We are here to exploit the value for your business and really kind of allow you to take advantage of technology to take the next step. So think of us as the ability to differentiate your business in different ways, as opposed to a commoditization that exists in your old cost model, scenario.
It's pretty interesting stuff. It fascinates me.
Yeah.
Not having a background in it is absolutely fascinating. If you think back to when you started in this business 25 years ago or so, any advice you give your younger self?
I think you're always going to, so you have to put on your continuous learning hat, right? Because this isn't an industry where you can just kind of set it and forget it. You have to continue to be passionate about learning and staying abreast of kind of what those technology trends are. So I've always been a fan of, that continuous development, not only for myself, but for my team. So that's always exciting for me.
Sure.
But the advice I would give my younger self today would be, you need to be patient, right? You need to be attentive, right, to your clients. You can't be complacent. And the patient side of it is you're trying to grow your business, but at the same time you want to grow it in a way that makes sense, right? Being a fairly new business, you got to kind of reverse, I guess, resist the urge to just bring on clients for clients' sake. You want to make sure they're a good fit.
Sure.
Right, and that they're buying into the value proposition, right? Because I've heard horror stories of other companies that just take on clients, and then the clients that don't understand, what you bring to the table, are very difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
So
these have been such great insights today. I can see why you are successful.
I appreciate
Sitting
that.
here listening to, I hear passion. I hear drive, and running in a business that we're in, for example. That's the relationship is what we're looking for, because I think that you understand that most people don't understand what you do,
Right.
and you're trying to take that away. Is there a website people can?
Yeah.
How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's www.teamlogicit.com, and then you basically search, for our office, right?
Okay.
You can learn a lot about what we do from there. But I would also urge people to give us a call. And our number is 412-492-4646.
412
492
492
4646.
4646. I don't know a lot about IT. I know more now. I can say if I were a business owner and I were starting out, my biggest fear would be, what do I do in this space?
Yeah.
And I think that after hearing the capabilities and the passion, this is a company that I would want to do business with. If you have any questions for Jason about his company, please reach out. Please talk to him directly. They're bringing great things to the Pittsburgh area. They're bringing great things to our Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank Jason for being my guest today and wish you the best of luck. I look forward to seeing you at events. Look forward to watching your company grow. Hopefully we can grow together.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate that. And for our chamber members too, give us a call. We're happy to have a conversation, and we'll do a free consultation.
Oh, there you go. Well, there you heard it from the man himself. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you next week again on the next podcast. Have a great day.